"I've never loved you," she said 2 days before our wedding. So I canceled everything. Now he's gone, and she's begging for help. Hey viewers, before we move on to the video, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button if you want to see more stories like this. Thanks. I remember the last truly good day we had. It was a Saturday, about 3 months before the wedding. Jane and I had spent the morning finalizing the floral arrangements, her buzzing with an energy I hadn't seen in months. We got back to our apartment, and she collapsed on the couch, laughing, her head in my lap. She said something about how surreal it was that we were finally getting married, and I felt this warmth in my chest, a sense of deep, complete satisfaction. It wasn't just about the wedding. It was about the life we were building. For 7 years, I had poured everything I had into that future. Our relationship was my foundation. While she was figuring out her life after college, hopping between different jobs, trying to find her passion, I was working. I landed a good job in tech, and for the last few years, I'd been working my way up the corporate ladder. The plan was always for me to be the financial bedrock while she pursued her dreams. I paid for our apartment, covered her half of the groceries, and even helped pay off a chunk of her student loans. It wasn't a transaction, it was a partnership. I was the rock, the stable ground. When she decided she wanted to start her own event planning business, I didn't hesitate. I helped her draft a business plan, gave her a loan to get it started, and even handled a lot of the initial marketing on the side. I did it because I loved her and wanted her to succeed, to be happy. And for the most part, it worked. The business was starting to get some traction. We were a real team. When I proposed, she said yes, and the planning became our new focus. But as the wedding approached, something shifted. The little jokes we used to share, the comfortable silence, it all started to feel a bit strained. She was less present. She was always on her phone, and when I'd ask what she was doing, she'd just say, "Oh, just wedding stuff." Then Mark came back into the picture. Mark was my oldest friend. We'd been inseparable since we were kids, and he was my best man. He had moved to another state a couple of years ago for a job, but when he learned I was getting married, he moved back a few months ago to be closer to the group. He was the charismatic one, the guy everyone gravitated toward. He had a way of making people feel like they were the only person in the room. Jane always liked him, but I never thought anything of it. It was my best friend and my fiancé. I trusted them both implicitly. But a few months out, the wedding stuff Jane was always on her phone about started to involve Mark more and more. They were picking up wedding favors, looking at rental furniture, and meeting with the DJ, often without me. When I try to go, Jane would say, "Babe, it's fine, we've got it. You've been working so hard. You deserve a break." Mark knows my taste, and he's happy to help. I didn't question it. I thought it was sweet that he was taking on so much of the burden. A month before the wedding, the emotional distance grew. Jane would come home from these meetings with Mark and be in a different mood. She'd laugh at her phone while we were watching TV, and when I'd ask her about it, she'd get defensive. "It's just a funny meme Mark sent me," she'd say, a little too quickly. Or she'd start a sentence with, "Mark thinks we should." And I would just nod, even though I was starting to feel like an afterthought in my own wedding planning. The most painful part was the comparison. One night, while we were folding invitations, she looked up from the table and said, "You know, Mark is just so driven. He's always taking risks. I think that's what makes him so successful. He's a real leader." It was the first time she'd ever said something that felt like a direct put down, a veiled jab at my steady, stable nature. She didn't say it maliciously. She said it like it was a simple observation, a fact. I just sat there, looking at the invitations, feeling a cold dread settle in the pit of my stomach. I was the rock, but it was starting to feel like she was looking for a mountain. I pushed the feeling away, telling myself it was just pre-wedding stress. After all, she was about to marry me. I was the one she had chosen. I had to be. 2 days before the wedding. It was a Tuesday. The caterers had just left, and the last of the floral deliveries had been dropped off. Our apartment, which had been a haven of calm, was now a chaotic blend of flowers, boxes, and half-empty champagne bottles. The air was thick with the scent of lilies and our own nervous energy. I was trying to thread a ribbon through a stack of seating cards when Jane walked in from the balcony. She didn't sit down. She just stood there, her arms wrapped around herself, looking at the mess around us with a detached expression. I looked up and smiled, trying to cut through the tension. "Almost done," I said. "Just a few more of these." and then we're golden. She didn't smile back. Her face was blank. Cold. We need to talk, she said, her voice flat, devoid of the emotion that had been buzzing between us for weeks. My heart immediately started to pound, a frantic drum against my ribs. I set the cards down. What's wrong? I finally managed to whisper. Is it the caterers? Did they forget something? No, it's not the caterers, she said, and she finally looked at me, her eyes just as blank as her expression. She took a breath, and the words that followed felt like a physical blow. Alex, this isn't going to work. I can't marry you. The air in the room suddenly felt thin. I couldn't move, couldn't speak. I just stared at her, waiting for the punchline, for her to start laughing and tell me it was a cruel joke. Why? I said, my voice a little too soft. What happened? She shrugged, a gesture so casual it felt like a slap in the face. I've been talking to Mark a lot, and I've realized something. She paused, her gaze drifting to a vase of white roses I'd bought her last week. The truth is, I've never been in love with you. Not really. The words hung in the air, a devastatingly simple sentence that dismantled our entire life. 7 years. Alone, an apartment, a business plan, a lifetime of stability and care. All of it reduced to a lie. What are you talking about? I said, my voice rising a little. We're getting married in 2 days, Jane. You can't be serious. I am, she said, her tone hardening. Look, Alex, you're a wonderful guy. You're stable. You're kind. You're a good provider. The way she said provider made it sound like a dirty word. But I've come to realize that's not what I want. I need passion, excitement, a partner who's a leader, not just a follower. Mark understands that. I stared at her, the pieces of the puzzle clicking into place with sickening clarity. The late-night texts, the secretive meetings, the barbed comments about my stable life. It wasn't about wedding planning at all. It was about her falling in love with someone else, with my best friend. Mark, I said, the name tasting like ash on my tongue. You're leaving me for Mark? My best man. A flicker of a smile, cold and smug, played on her lips. He's a man who goes after what he wants. He's not afraid to take risks. That's what I need in my life. She looked around the room, at the wreckage of our wedding preparations. This life with you, it's just so safe. It's boring. I need more than that. I stood there, surrounded by the remnants of a future that would never exist. The wedding cards, the flowers, the champagne. It all felt like a mockery. I felt the hot sting of tears behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. She wanted a reaction. She wanted me to beg, to scream, to give her the drama she craved. But I wouldn't. I looked at her, at the woman I thought I knew, and saw only a stranger. My love for her was an anchor I had been carrying for 7 years, and in that moment, I let it go. Okay, I said, my voice low and steady. I picked up a stack of seating cards and placed them neatly in a box. My hands weren't shaking. I understand. I stayed calm. The silence that followed was heavy, but it was a silence I had created, a shield against the cruelty she'd just unleashed. My mind was already moving, processing the logistics, not the emotions. I looked at the seating cards again, at the two of us standing in this room filled with the artifacts of a life that was now fiction. I'll be out by tomorrow morning, I said, my voice as level as I could make it. I'll pack my things and have them moved. I didn't say, what about the money for the wedding? Or how could you do this? There was no point. Her words had already given me all the answers I needed. She'd made her choice, and in a way, she had freed me from a lie I didn't even know I was living. I went to the bedroom and pulled a duffel bag from the closet. I started with my clothes, folding them with a strange, methodical precision. As I worked, she tried to talk, her voice a little softer now, as if sensing the emotional distance I was putting between us. Alex, are you okay? I'm sorry, I know this is a lot. I didn't answer. I just kept packing. She had a point, it was a lot. 7 years, gone in a single, cold confession. She had wanted to talk. I was talking to her in the only way that mattered now. I want you to understand. This isn't about you not being enough. It's about me needing something different. Something more. I finally turned to face her, a t-shirt in my hand. I understand completely, I said, looking her dead in the eye. You made a selfish choice. The first honest one you've made in months, probably years. I just wish you'd done it before I invested everything I had into a future with you. The quiet dignity came naturally. There was no rage, No begging, no plea for her to reconsider. When you're standing in the wreckage of your life and you're the only one left standing, you learn a different kind of strength. I spent the night on the couch. In the morning, I packed the last of my things and left the key on the counter. I didn't even look back. I just walked away, carrying my things and the cold, hard knowledge of what had truly happened. My phone blew up for the next few days. It was her mom, it was a few mutual friends. I ignored all of them. I changed my passwords, blocked her and Mark on every platform, and just disappeared. Life after Jane was quiet. Eerily so at first. I moved into a new apartment, small and empty, but it was mine. I started focusing on my career again with a single-minded intensity. I was promoted within 6 months, a direct result of the energy I had once poured into a failing relationship. The silence was a balm, a chance to rediscover who I was without the constant need to be someone's rock. About a year later, the news started trickling in. The first hint came from an old college friend I hadn't talked to in a while. "Hey man, I heard about Mark. Is that whole situation really as bad as it sounds?" I played dumb. "I don't know what you're talking about," I said, and he didn't press it. But the stories kept coming. It turned out Mark wasn't the driven, successful leader Jane had claimed. He was an impulsive risk-taker with a penchant for living beyond his means. His entrepreneurial ventures were just a string of failed get-rich-quick schemes. He'd been living off his parents' money and using Jane's savings to fund his reckless lifestyle. The real downfall came when one of his schemes went bust. It wasn't just a financial loss, it was a legal mess. He'd signed Jane on as a partner in his last, ill-fated business. It left her on the hook for a mountain of debt. He ghosted her when the lawsuit started. He cut her off, deleted all of his social media, and disappeared, just like I had. He went back to live with his parents in another state, leaving her to face the consequences of his actions alone. A few months after that, I got a random message from one of our old mutual friends, Sarah, who had stood by Jane through all of this. "Hey Alex, I'm so sorry for what happened. I'm so sorry. Jane is in a really bad place right now." I was calm. I simply replied, "What happened, Sarah?" Sarah told me everything. Mark had not only left her with a crushing debt, but he'd also been emotionally and verbally abusive. He was nothing like the charismatic man she'd fallen for. He was a monster, a user. Jane's event planning business was now bankrupt, and she was forced to move back in with her parents. Her reputation was in tatters, and her friends, including Sarah, were starting to see her for who she was, a toxic, cruel person who had used a good man to get what she wanted, only to be used and discarded in the most brutal way imaginable. She was broken, and completely alone. The universe had a sense of poetic justice, and it was a masterpiece. The silence from me must have been a form of torture for her. After a month of no contact, the first text came. "Jane, hey." I didn't respond. A day later, another one. "Jane, so I heard about you getting promoted. That's great. Congrats." Still nothing. Then the floodgates opened. Her messages became a torrent of excuses, apologies, and half-truths, always with an underlying tone of self-pity. "Jane, Mark and I, it's been rough. I guess you were right about him." "Jane, I'm really sorry about everything, Alex. I know it was wrong, but I was just so lost." "Jane, my parents are so mad at me. And my business, everything is gone. I don't know what to do." I just watched the messages come in, a silent, detached observer. There was a time when these words would have shattered me, but now they were just a foreign language. They were no longer about me. They were about her. She wasn't seeking forgiveness. She was seeking a lifeline. The friends and family came next. First, her mom, who I had always liked. "Alex, honey, it's her mom. Please, just talk to her. She's in such a bad place. You were always so good to her. I know you can help." I politely declined. I wish her the best, but I'm not the right person for her to talk to. I wasn't cold, just firm and professional. Then came the mutual friends. A text from David, a friend of Mark's, who had been in the know from the start. "Dude, I told him not to mess with you, but he wouldn't listen. Jane is a mess. I think she really thought you'd be there to catch her when she fell." I responded to him with a simple, "Good luck with that." Finally, after I ignored a string of increasingly frantic calls, she showed up at my work one afternoon. I was on my way out, a few years into my new promotion, now a project lead. I was well-dressed, confident, and had a clear sense of purpose. I saw her standing near the entrance, looking out of place in a worn trench coat, her hair a mess. The entitled, smug girl from 2 years ago was gone. In her place was a woman who looked defeated. "Alex, please," she said, her voice small. "Just give me 5 minutes." "I don't have 5 minutes for you," I said, without breaking my stride. "Whatever you have to say, you can say it here. My coffee is getting cold. I just wanted to say, I miss you," she stammered. "I messed up everything. Mark was a monster, a user. He left me with nothing. I see what you've become. You're so successful, and you look so happy. You were always the one for me. I was just too stupid to see it." She started to cry, real tears this time. "Please, Alex, can we just talk? I'll do anything. I'll get therapy. I'll pay you back for the business loan. Anything. I just want my life back." This was it. The moment she had been building to. The moment I had been preparing for. She wasn't begging for me. She was begging for the old me, the safety, the stability she had so cruelly discarded. I looked at her, at the empty shell of the woman I used to know, and for the first time, I felt nothing. No anger, no pity, not even a trace of the old love. She was simply a stranger. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't get angry. I just calmly stated the facts, reflecting her own words back to her. This was a complete reversal of power. "You're right," I said, a slight smile on my lips. "I am happy. I've never been happier. And you're right. I have a great life now. A life I built after you destroyed the one we were supposed to have." She tried to reach out and touch my arm, but I subtly took a step back. "You said you never loved me, Jane. You said I was boring and too safe. You said you needed a man who was a leader, someone who wasn't afraid to take risks. You found him, didn't you? You got exactly what you said you wanted." Her face fell. "But he left me with nothing." "He did," I said. "And you know what? That's not my problem. You don't get to gamble with other people's lives and then ask them to bail you out when you lose. My life is no longer a safety net for your bad decisions. I have a life now where I'm not a backup plan, not a stepping stone. I've moved on so completely, it's as if you never existed." I looked down at the coffee in my hand, then back up at her, my eyes clear. "You were just a stepping stone for me, too. Your betrayal forced me to grow. It forced me to find myself, to learn my own worth, and to build a life on my own terms. So thank you. I owe you that much." I could see her processing the words, a mix of shock and dawning horror on her face as she realized I wasn't just rejecting her. I was completely and utterly indifferent to her existence. I had become the upgrade, and she was a relic of a past I had long since left behind. "Goodbye, Jane," I said, my voice low and final. I walked past her, leaving her standing there alone on the sidewalk, a person I had once loved more than anything in the world. I got in my car, drove off, and never thought about her again. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. What do you think about this story? Share it in the comments.